I'm Butch Stearns, and welcome into the latest edition of The Customer Edge, brought to you by SAP. What is the Customer Edge? Well, here's what we strive for it to be for you. We hope that you re-examine and re-strategize the customer experience that you provide your customers, or at least that this show, this webisode, provides you some of the ammunition to be able to do that. Customer Edge really is a community more than a show. It's about a regular webisode that we bring to you. It's about social engagement and collaboration. We're here to help you, hopefully, learn from the latest trends, the latest tools, the latest thinking, and the goals to keep you informed and inspired to give your customers a better experience. The topic of today's show, very simply, is how to be loved in sales. So once again, welcome to the Customer Edge. And joining me co-hosting today's show is the Director of Global Marketing at SAP. His name is Robert Rothschild. Robert, how are you?
I'm doing great, Butch. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great to have you here. I'm excited to learn from you, because after having some conversations with you, you have a lot to pass on.
I've been doing this a while, yeah.
Yeah, you have been doing this a while. For people that don't know you, talk about what you do at SAP, talk about as a Director of Global Marketing, and what are you passionate about when it comes to the customer experience, the Customer Edge?
Sure, you know what, let me talk a little bit about where I've been and what I've done.
Sure.
So I spent probably the first half of my career, we'll just leave it at that, mostly sales operations, marketing type roles, and I was very frustrated, honestly, with the way that technology was being used in order to help make my life and the life of the teams that I worked with easier. So it was sort of a tipping point experience at one point where I made the shift over to the vendor side. And I've spent the last half of my career mostly focused on finding new and innovative ways to use technology and share that with others to make their life easier.
So you've been doing this for a long time. You're passionate about this. And when you talk about customer experience and giving the customers the edge, you're really talking to business people now, because the power has shifted. Absolutely. Customers have all the power now, don't they? Or most of it.
They do. I mean, there's no question at all that if you look at the way that the process of buying and selling has changed over time, there have been so many innovations that have happened in the last 5 to 10 years or so that have completely transformed the way that people buy products and services from companies. And that power has completely shifted in the direction of the customer.
Now, if you are watching this show live, we are coming to you here, 2 o'clock we started here, East Coast time, from the Pulse Network studios. My name is Butch Stearns. This is Robert Rothschild. You can get engaged with this show. You can send us a question, or you can just follow the conversation that's going on. Simply go to Twitter and search the hashtag CustEdge, CUSTEDGE. That's where the conversation will be going on live during this show, and we welcome your input. All right, let's get to some headlines, and let's get to some trends when it comes to how to be loved in sales. And let's start with time to soup up your sales team. This comes from an article that came from Time Magazine in the Business and Money section from Lauren Simons, who gives her small business tip of the day. Lauren is the managing editor of Small Business Computing. And Robert, when she's talking about time to soup up your sales team, she mentions that, of course, we're in a sluggish economy. It's always up and down. And while we all know that the answer to more sales is, obvious in some ways, just get more sales, to souping up your sales team, your approach to sales opportunities is really what you need to examine, right?
It is. I mean, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. I mean, one of the ways that she mentions in the article, she did an interview with Joe Fooster. And he really talks about how you can provide, you really have to constantly be looking for ways to provide more value to your customers. You know your business, your customer's business often from a different perspective than they do. And that gives you a unique opportunity to constantly be on the lookout for problems that you can help them solve based on the products and services that you have available.
So when she talked to Joe Fooster, she hammered out 4 bullet points that you can look at. Let's talk about those. First one is consistent sales force. Get a perfect sale visualization of what the sale. Talk a little bit about the points that Joe's making there.
Yeah, it's interesting. He said paint a picture of the perfect sales opportunity, the perfect sales situation, and then sit down with your team and come up with 5 to 10 items that you can do, action items that you can do to basically make that vision a reality. And I think that's a brilliant way.
Of what the ideal sale would be like.
Absolutely.
So now you actually have a template.
Yeah. Of
what you think it's going to be. The second point that Joe made was tap existing accounts. And I love this one. I want to read a quote underneath this that talks about, look at your customer's business, understand where the problems might arise, and when you see a problem that your product or service can address, offer to solve it for them. I think this hammers his point about when you take the check, when the relationship starts, that's just the beginning of the journey. Tap your existing accounts, understand that the sale has just begun. The customer experience or the journey has just begun with them.
Of course. I mean, that's only the start. And the other thing to look at, and I think this is a brilliant quote, by the way, but the other thing you have to keep in mind is that your customers have a unique perspective of what their business is like, and it also tends to be a very narrow slice of their overall company. And as an outsider, you have an opportunity to help them see opportunities where they may not see those in other divisions and other geographies that you can potentially help them solve those problems.
Joe Foster's third point is look for interesting opportunities and outcomes. And he talks about by industry, what's common amongst your successful customers. What more does he mean by that when he says look for interesting opportunities and outcomes?
I think he's talking about looking for different patterns. You know, there's common patterns that you may see even across accounts in the same industry where you can take learning from one account and use that to apply an opportunity to another account and bring extra value to that account from your
And the fourth point he makes is customer communication. And while he makes a simple point about speak their language, meaning that they may be on the phone, they may be on Twitter, find out where they live and talk to them in a language that they understand or use the communication that they do. He also, I want to go right to the goal. He says, remember that your goal is to be a trusted advisor to each customer. This is a huge point to me.
It is. I mean, it's about really keeping the customer at the center of every conversation, keeping the customer at the center of everything that you do, and looking for opportunities to earn their trust, earn their business, and to improve value for both sides, actually.
And as the comment said there, do it not just by pushing products, but understand what to do. But it's hard because you do want to push your products.
It is. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you can find ways to add value to your customers, truly understand what their business needs are, what problems they're encountering, and look for innovative ways to solve those problems for them, you're going to sell your products and services anyway.
So it's more about finding ways that your products and solutions solve problems for them, not why they're so great.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's our first trend, time to soup up your sales team. Now let's go to our second trend under today's customer edge, under how to be loved in sales. It's how to best measure your sales manager's success. And this is an article written by Mukesh Gupta, a blog. Mukesh works for SAP. He's at Customer Advocate. And in this article, he talks about, obviously, the normal way to measure any sales success is the quota. Did they hit the quota? Does he or she hit that? Well, according to Mukesh, when it comes to sales managers, that's not the best or the optimal way to measure sales managers. You have to start looking at their role, and in his opinion, their role is to enable their sales force. Talk about this.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, the job of every sales manager is to recruit, coach, and mentor the entire team so that they perform at their best. That's a given. If you're relying just on a few top performers to carry the weight of the entire team, that's not only a huge and risky proposition, but you're doing a huge disservice to your entire sales team. So I found that most of the best-in-class companies typically do have a broader set of KPIs that they use to measure the performance of their sales managers. It's more than just whether they're hitting their numbers or not. They look at things like the percentage of sales reps who are achieving their quota, but they also look at things like employee turnover. They look at things like how long does it take to ramp up a brand new sales rep so that they're fully productive, and what's the overall resource cost for every sale. I mean, you could have some of your best performers and they're actually producing the results, but they're doing it at an extremely high cost.
When I look at this second trend, how to best measure your sales manager's success, let's nitpick that word manager and let me use a sports analogy.
Sure,
if you're a manager of a baseball team, if Joe Torre, I'm dating myself, manager of the Yankees, okay, it's Joe Girardi now. If Joe Girardi, manager of the Yankees, or John Farrell, the manager of the Red Sox, they're going to be measured by the sales results, the wins or losses of their team. But really, when you look deeper into it, they should be looking at how they enabled that team to perform. Did the pitching staff perform like one of the top pitching staffs in the league? And is that leading to wins? Because sales is a results-driven practice. But as the manager, there needs to be a deeper understanding of how to measure their success, right?
There is. I mean, great coaches do very well by focusing on the entire team, and this is a team sport. Sales is definitely a team sport. It's not an area where you can go out and be the lone wolf anymore. You need to coordinate and orchestrate activities across the entire organization. You need to depend and rely on subject matter experts that may be within or beyond your enterprise. and build coalitions with other customers.
I love that quote, sales is a team sport. I'm Butch Stearns, he's Robert Rothschild. You are watching The Customer Edge. We're talking about trends. The topic of today's show is how to be loved in sales. Our third trend is the art of debriefing. Now let's really get granular with this. It's written by a gentleman named Eric Fry, who is a partner at Sandler Training. And in his article in the Daily Business Buzz, the title is Column Spotlight, Success in Sales, the Sandler Team. And he talks about debriefing. He talks about specifically why to do it and how to do it. And I think he makes a great point that if you think you're doing it, really examine if you are at all or if the right way. Is it in a hallway conversation? Are you walking by and giving a pat on the back? While that's good, that's not what we're talking about here with debriefing, is it?
No, it's not drive-by coaching. It doesn't work that way now. I mean, debriefing is a huge coaching and education opportunity. And as a sales manager, these are the moments that give you the perfect opportunity to help steer your salespeople in the right direction. You help bring focus and purposeful action into the mix. And that helps them not only hit their numbers, but it also creates fantastic experiences for their customers. And quite honestly, it creates a better quality of life for themselves.
And again, if we go to the goal of this, I've got another quote from this. The goal that Eric Fry from Sandler Training reminds us is, the goal is to let your sales team learn a system for debriefing so they're able to do it themselves and learn from their mistakes. So you're actually teaching your salespeople how to manage,
Absolutely.
As well as drive results.
Teach them to fish. Yeah, it works.
Teach them to fish.
Teach them to fish.
You're into the simple quotes. I love
I
this.
like
You're
it.
making it
Yeah,
easy for me to understand
absolutely,
anyway.
absolutely.
All right, those are our three trends here on the Customer Edge when we're talking to you about how to be loved in sales. Robert Rothschild is alongside. We're back with more in just a little bit. Right now, though, we're going to help you get the edge here on Customer Edge. In talking about how to be loved in sales, the key to sales effectiveness, what is it? It's collaboration on many levels. Here's the Pulse Network's Tyler Pyburn with David Brock from Partners in Excellence.
It is, in fact, time to go ahead and get the edge. This is where we get the edge on everything that is related to sales effectiveness today. Welcome in, I'm Tyler Pyburn of the Pulse Network. Today, we're actually getting the edge with Dave Brock of Partners in Excellence. And of course, he is joining us via Skype right now in, well, Southern California. Yes, I'm envious of you, Dave, right now, but welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Great, Tyler. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be talking to you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So one of the things in particular that we want to touch upon, I mean, the show is today entirely dedicated to sales effectiveness. So what I want to do is actually go back to an article that you've written a number of months ago. It was called, Are You Building Coalitions with Your Customers? First off, kind of give me a bit of an overview of that piece in particular.
You know, I think what we need to do is you know, when we talk about sales, we talk a lot about relationships and establishing tight relationships with our customers. But I think in today's environment, we need to go much further beyond just the relationships. We need to really build, you know, collaborative relationships. We need to build coalitions with our customers. And it's not only between us and the customer, the individual per se that we're working with, but it's between organizations. You know, as we look at kind of today's world of B2B sales, it's very, very complex interactions between our organization and the customer's organization. And the customer has a lot to do to go through their own buying cycle themselves. So as we're kind of helping provide some leadership to our customers, we have to be sensitive to the collaboration in the coalitions that we build between ourselves and the customer, and between other parts of our company and other parts of the customer's company, you know, to really help them achieve what they're trying to achieve with their business. You know, so it's a much broader perspective of how we engage the customer. It's a much broader perspective of both the resources we use in our own companies and the resources we use within the customer's company.
Now, one of the things you wrote in particular that I actually kind of chuckled about was you said, you know, every sales professional has, you know, that buddy in the account, you know, that one person, that go-to source that it always has your back, always kind of sponsors, always, you know, helps you along the way. It's always great to utilize that, but talk to that a bit more, you know, how you need to, like you said, leverage the entire business and maybe some of the other business units as well.
Well, you know, I think as you know, salespeople are human beings like kind of anybody else, and we have the people that we have there are people in the customer. They're the people that have supported us. They're the people that, pick up the phone and talk to us. And so we naturally tend to gravitate to them. And so the way we tend to see our customers' organizations, if we're not careful, is through their eyes. And, so they only see a small part, in fact, of their own organization, regardless of the level that we're at. So if we're focusing all our efforts through their eyes, we're missing a huge amount of opportunities that they may not be aware of themselves, say in other divisions, in other parts of the world, in other parts of the organization, or we may only be seeing things from their bias and not necessarily from the way things really are. So it's really incumbent on us as sales professionals to develop a deep and rich web of relationships across the entire organization. So we have a picture of what's happening with the whole organization and a picture of the entire opportunity that we can go after in a variety of different points of view.
So, Dave, one of the things I have to ask you, is how much of improving, sales effectiveness as a whole is about focusing on people as opposed to, focusing on process?
That's a really complex question. I think we all tend to try and simplify selling in the sales process or any kind of business problem into kind of little buckets, and we can manage those little buckets. But in reality, what we're looking at is a set of complex systems. We have, say, the customer is a set of complex systems where buyers are kind of coordinating their own activities within their own organization. So we may have different roles and different people involved. And within our own organization, there's a whole bunch of kind of complex things. So people undoubtedly are a key part of being effective in selling. But, there's some other elements to it. It's your overall strategy. It's your culture as an organization. It's the processes that we put in place. It's systems and tools and things like that. So all of these things kind of work kind of interrelated to each other. And the moment you start tinkering with one of those, it impacts some of the other things. So we have to really be cognizant of how we look at things as a whole system. So it is about people. It is about our process. It is about our culture and how we want to be perceived by our customers and how we want them to hold us and value us. And it's about the systems and tools and all the other things that we have to bring kind of a whole set of offerings and capabilities to serve our customers.
Dave, in your opinion, what's really the opportunity right now for sales professionals, specifically, surrounding big data in sales as it relates to sales effectiveness?
Well, I think everything, we've seen more change probably in the last 5 years in professional selling and in buying than any time, I think, in previous history. If you go back to, the days when the very first sales transaction was done. I think one of the most exciting things that I see happening today is the real application of rich analytics and big data to really change the way we can engage with customers. Rich analytics and big data give us the opportunity to identify the right customer at the right time with the right message and the right offer. Where before we were taking guesses at that, they may have been educated and informed guesses, but now big data and rich analytics give us the capability of really being able to intersect that customer with the right message at the right time and the right offer at the right time. And you can dramatically drive improvements in the way you can connect with them and in their responsiveness. We, a number of years ago, did a project with a major bank where, using rich analytics, we went from kind of first call conversion rates of somewhere around, as I recall, it was 16 to 17%, to first call conversion rates of in the 80s. And that was, just being able to identify the right people with the right message and right offer and intersect them at a time where they had a high desire to buy something. So I think I think we're just tapping into the potential. I think there's a lot we don't understand. I mean, one of the big things about analytics is it has to do with the quality of questions that you're asking, the things that you're trying to find. So we're at the very, very early stage of it, and I see big data and analytics being a big thing for sales over the next 3 to 5 years.
I was going to say one of the things that that came out of that for me was taking action, right? I mean, I think that's one of the big points that needs to be made is that we have all this data at our fingertips to allow to go ahead and do this, but you need to make sure that you follow through with taking action, right?
Yeah, well, and it also makes us much more knowledgeable and much more informed. So we're reaching out to the right person at the right time. Beforehand, a lot of the time, regardless of how much we researched and how well we really tried to understand the customer, a lot of it was just kind of a roll of the dice. Are they possibly interested in doing something right now? Can we do something, give them an idea that catches their attention? Now with big data, we can be much more purposeful and much more focused, and then increase the quality of our engagement. So it really offers us huge, huge, huge potential.
Now, Dave, the last thing I wanted to ask you is, I know you work with a lot of different brands, a lot of different companies out there, and when you're starting out, what are 2, 3 things that you're actually, telling some of these sales leaders and professionals out there that they should be doing right now to boost their team's effectiveness overall?
I think, we have to change the way we look at and engage the customer. So much of the way we design our processes for engaging the customer is kind of the inward out. We look at what our strengths as a company are. We look at our product offerings. We naturally have fallen in love with them and can't imagine why anybody wouldn't buy them. But we look at what's the best way for us to approach the market. How do we want to approach customers, and how do we want to get our customers all hot and lathered about our products? What we really have to do is reverse that perspective. We have to build our entire engagement process from the customer's point of view back into the company. So we have to understand how they want to buy, how they want to be engaged, what's the most effective way for us to work with them. How do they manage their own internal buying processes? And then we have to build all our systems, tools, and infrastructure to support that. So it really is a shift from the classic old inward out kind of focus to an outward in focus. It's amazing to me how many problems you can solve just by changing that perspective. Once you put the customer at the center of how you design your sales process, around how you design your go-to-customer strategy, things become very, very simple, and it allows us to focus and do things right, and really drive overall sales performance in ways that many people just can't imagine.
Excellent. I absolutely love it. Dave, great stuff. Honestly, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And for the folks out there, want to get in touch with you, I know you're literally everywhere right now. Well, what's the best spot that they can locate you at?
Best spot maybe is Twitter at David A. Brock, or at my blog, partnersinexcellenceblog.com. And there are all sorts of contact information through those. So I'm active on both, and look forward to seeing lots of people in the audience engaging me there. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That right there, folks, is David Brock of Partners in Excellence. We appreciate his time for sure. We appreciate you guys. That right there is Get the Edge.
You are watching The Customer Edge. Hi, everybody. I'm Butch Stearns. We are talking about how to be loved in sales today, and we're hopefully striving to give you a guide to sales effectiveness. We're talking about collaboration, enablement, implementation, social selling, and more. And I am clearly not the expert. When it comes to that, I do have some skills in it, I think. But welcome back to Customer Edge. Joining me now with Robert Rothschild of SAP is Peter Ostro, who's a VP Group Director, Sales Effectiveness and Strategy. You got a lot of things in your title, Peter.
We get paid by the word, Butch.
From Aberdeen. You're an analyst about this for several decades. You've been passionate about this. Tell people what they need to know about you, Peter.
Sure. So a lot of my career has basically been in selling, managing salespeople, and doing sales ops. And so coming over to the analyst side of the house about 5-6 years ago, it was pretty easy to figure out how to help to create content for that audience. And the methodology is basically we crowdsource what works for hundreds of companies and help folks who consume our research learn really from each other more than it is actually from us.
So before we take a deeper dive into a lot of this, give us your comment on what Robert and I were talking about before, just the shift in power, that customers do have the power. I think you have a little different bent on it, that the power has gone so far that way that it's starting to come back towards businesses a little bit, right?
It is, and I think that the pendulum shift is happening because we're catching up. I mean, in my world of sort of the sales end user, the sales ops team, the sales leaders, you know, how come, I guess my question is, how come the marketing guys have all the opportunity to know all about their customers' behavior, when they click, when they open, how often they do or don't interact, but in the sales end of things, we traditionally have just sent off the proposal or left the pitch book and just hope that someone gets us the opportunity to seal the deal. The technology platforms are now allowing us to have much more visibility into the customer behavior, borrowing from the marketing team's book, but understanding how our customers are actually interacting with the materials and things that we've sent to them that we want to put in front of them, as well as obviously providing us with a lot of insight with their social content and the user-generated stuff to understand a whole nother layer about their behavior.
And Robert, when we look at the analyst side of it and the information they provide, it's more valuable than ever because selling has become more complex now, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about what David just talked about in the last segment, selling has become so complex and it's so much more difficult than, I mean, if you go back to the Mad Men era of sales, I mean, this was the days where in order to be successful in sales, all you needed was a great smile, good golf swing, and a few martinis in order to close the deal. And nowadays, you've got to orchestrate so many different moving parts. There are people within your organization, outside your organization, subject matter experts, content that's coming from so many different angles. And to be able to pull that together in a cohesive way so that you can provide value to your customers.
I think it requires the sales rep, contemporary sales rep, to be more of a student of their business than ever before.
I agree.
And I think the idea that you can just take someone with the smile and the swing, hand them a phone, a list, a territory, and a playbook, and expect that they're going to do well just because they're good in sales, that's a fallacy. More and more we see the best-in-class companies in our research hiring sales reps who actually have industry experience, who have, of course, the personalities in place to get the deal done, but who actually are their own mini subject matter experts. And you can only do that through self-education.
But gentlemen, you're not negating that the golf swing, the choice of liquor that your customer needs, or the smile are still important, but now you can't just rely on that. Is that the point?
Absolutely. You know, we talk, I know, about mobility and the concept of in-person interactions between reps, whether they're selling or managing an account. That's alive and well. We don't see companies cutting back on their sales travel expenditures. It actually continues to grow because, especially unless you're selling something very, very low end and commoditized, B2B sales is about complex products that need relationship and trust and confidence between the buyer and seller to be able to make those relationships work.
Let's talk about a recent research you did at Aberdeen and talk about sales intelligence and what B2B sellers need to know before the call. The title of an article you wrote in April. Is that what separates the top performing organizations from the rest? Sales intelligence? Is that what it does?
Yeah, and it's not a contradiction in terms like jumbo shrimp. Yeah, Louis Pasteur said, chance favors the prepared mind. And if we're going to try to swing that pendulum back from completely having the buyer, and we as consumers know this, have all that information about our products when we don't even know if they're actually taking a peek at our products or services or solutions. Sales intelligence basically is defined as knowing as much as possible in a couple of different ways. We need to know the demographic and firmographic information. Who is the person? What is their company? What does their 10K tell me? That's static information that can sit in the CRM. Then we need sales intelligence, which allows us to understand what's going on right now in that person's world from a business perspective. What kind of merger and acquisition information? What kind of executive changes are going on that might impact the people I know to whom I sell? And then the third leg of that stool is social. And the thing about social media is, you know, we've all been in those environments when we've been in sales where we get that RFP and it hits our desk or it hits our inbox and the cold sweats begin because that personality, the swing, the smile, you know, the ability to...
It doesn't take you very far at that point.
No, it doesn't take you very far when you're dealing with the procurement staff, and those guys are really good at their jobs. Yeah. Social gives us a whole other layer of information about what our prospect or customer or the company they work for or their cousin or their competitor want and need. And there's inevitably going to be some great clues in terms of their tweets, their posts, et cetera, that help us learn just something we didn't know based on just the column fodder that we're a part of with the RFP.
So Robert, let me ask you this question, put you on the spot. It's a specific question, but it's a general one. When we go back to the trends you and I talked about, when I say sales intelligence, give me one example of what we're talking about. For example, when we went into time to soup up your sales department, you focused on the fact that it's a journey. You know, in a sale, after you take the check, it's part of it. So give me one example how sales intelligence is being used in an effective way.
Well, I mean, if I think back, I don't want to date myself too much, but if I think back 10, 15 years... We can all date ourselves, that's okay. 10, 15 years ago, I mean, I would have been willing to give my right arm for this thing in my pocket. I mean, to be able to walk into a sales account and be fully prepared to understand what's going on in that account, you know, not only just the leads and the opportunities and who the contacts are, but what's being said about my brand, what types of products and services they may be interested in, what burning issues may have popped up that I need to be aware of because I got to put out those fires when I walk in the door. That's gold.
And your customer is more educated than ever, because if you're not checking what's going on the 3 minutes before your meeting, an educated customer is likely, when you walk in the door, to say, hey, I don't want to talk about your product today. What about this news I just saw about how you guys, and you've got some defects going on in your Asian distribution center or something. They're going to be so educated and up to date that if you're not prepared to defend and parry and have that conversation, you're not going to get the sale.
Well, so they're educated, they're empowered, and their expectations are so much higher than they were in the past.
I want to give you one example for me about the pendulum swinging back, or the way you should think about it. I was in a conversation recently with somebody in e-commerce, and naively I went into it thinking, well, the actual brick and mortar storefront is less important than ever. And they're like, no, it's more important than ever. But here's the problem, or here's one problem, talking about sales intelligence. I can't afford to have somebody walking in with that smartphone or that tablet and have a different experience in store than they have online. That's suicide.
It is.
Right there. So it is more important than ever, but that makes sales intelligence, data, and we're getting into big data now and analytics, even more important than ever.
Well, it also means that you have to speak to the customer with one voice. You're talking about a multi-channel experience in a retail consumer environment, even in the B2B space, which is kind of the majority of the work that I tend to focus on. No longer is it okay for us to sort of treat a customer from the marketing perspective, and then to sort of treat them from the sales perspective, and then finally from the service perspective. They don't care whether they're in the CRM or the marketing automation system or the help desk or contact center system. Exactly. They just want their stuff, they want their resolution, they want their service, and they want it now. So if we don't actually have, from a data perspective, one view of the customer to understand who they are and know that that view is up to date, it's colored by all of their current activity. Just because I'm selling to someone doesn't mean that the marketing activity doesn't go on. Right. Because I might be selling to Butch for a while my widget is something that I wanted to deliver to him. But what if Robert actually is still on my website asking about the green widgets and I'm only focused on the red ones? I need to have that sort of 360-degree view of the customer.
You are watching The Customer Edge. I'm Butch Stearns. This is our In the Field segment. Our subject today on Customer Edge is how to be loved in sales. We're efforting to give you a guide, if you will, in sales effectiveness. We're talking specifically with Peter Ostro from Aberdeen right now and Robert Rothschild of SAP, specifically about what B2B sellers need to know before the call. Peter, let's talk about social channels. How does the insight from social channels help or hurt this process?
It hurts if you use it as your sole source of information. I think that the Dow dropped 150 points in minutes last week because, I don't know, somebody hacked some corporation's account and everybody was all on Twitter about it, and then suddenly they realized that it wasn't the case. So it's one communications channel, but the power can't be ignored. Our research shows that the strongest performing companies, the people who shrink their sales cycles, grow their deal size, grow revenue, et cetera, all the metrics you mentioned earlier, Robert, these companies are much more likely to already tell us that they have closed deals that were sourced on social media and closed deals that were heavily influenced by social media. Now, will a tweet lead to a $10 billion deal? Probably not. But it's just another way in which people can have some insight into the behavior of their prospects and customers. It's one thing to know the person's title and their email address, or even that they might have downloaded a paper or attended an event. But on Twitter and in social media, despite the best of controls, there's a lot less control, really, by the corporation, because their competitors can tweet, their LinkedIn members can say things and put them in and out of groups and whatnot. It gives everybody the opportunity to have a conversation. So it's not so much of controlling the conversation as being tuned into it that allows the better sellers to have more insight into what their customers are looking for.
And David Brock was sort of alluding to this in his segment with Tyler Pyburn in the Get the Edge segment here on Customer Edge, on collaboration on many levels of this. So when it comes to social, you know, it's one way to get it and find out behaviors, but you need collaboration amongst all parts of the organization, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's not just within the organization, though. It also, you have the complexity of the sales process now extends beyond the enterprise. So you have people that you need to form alliances within your customers, within your partners, within your channel partners. There's so many different aspects of that that tie into
And
it.
collaboration leads to insight.
It does.
We just
It
did
does.
some research on a small technology area called portals, deal rooms, et cetera. Again, I was sort of whining earlier about how come you guys in marketing know all about the behavior of your audience, and in sales, I sent the proposal. I think it's going to close by the end of the month. I feel like, it's all the emotion, right? And got to get to the facts when we're talking about building that forecast. But with portals and deal rooms, we've got the opportunity for collaboration, because suddenly as a sales rep, I know if or for how long my prospect or customer has opened up the proposal or the RFP response. And my boss can actually say to me, you know what, I don't think I'm putting that to 90% in the CRM, because very frankly, no one on your customer side has actually paid attention to the content you put out there. You need to put something else in your pipeline.
And this is probably one of the first times in many, many years where we've had the power to harness that data insight and use it in a way to help sales organizations focus on where it matters the most.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the end of every sales cycle, right, a typical sales leader is going to be told by X number of reps that Y number of deals are this close to the goal line. And I just need a little extra help. I need a discount. I need you to make a phone call. They don't have, nor should they expend the bandwidth to touch every one of those deals. So which one of those are really more likely to call? The analytics that we have into customer behavior, the analytics that we can actually put into place to find out, has the sales rep actually understood the BANT criteria? Have they done their homework? Have they paid attention to the social stream? Allows the organization to actually figure out which deals are more likely to close. And at the end, more deals close for more money more quickly.
Everybody wins.
Robert, expand on that a little bit more about harnessing the power of the data and what we have the ability to do now with that.
Well, I think Dave mentioned it the best. I mean, he said if you take a look at how big data and rich analytics come together, you now have the ability to focus on the right customer at the right time with the right message and the right offer at the time when they're most likely to buy. So if you bring all that together, I mean, it's kind of hard to miss.
So it's real time.
It's real time.
It's also customizable.
Oh, of course.
By customer, by industry, by vertical, by subject matter. I mean, really, you can now tailor things any way you want. And again, we're talking about sales intelligence here. So really, you can streamline your process to try to be most effective, however you decide within your organization.
And you're tailoring it not based on what you think might work, but what you have been proven to show that works based on the data that you've gathered.
Well, we can all take the numbers and read what we want into them, and that's fine. You can make mistakes from that, but learn from those mistakes, right?
Yeah, and as customers, think about us as consumers. You go to a new site where you're going to maybe buy something. When you go back to the site the next time, if it doesn't say, "Welcome back, Robert,"
Of course.
there's a little part of you that's like, ugh, you know what, this quite isn't, this, am I really going to buy again from these people?
Well, that's
We
the
have that-
Amazon thing, right? Amazon
The Amazon
knows
effect.
you.
Exactly.
And you bought some Robert Ludlum novels?
better than
By the
you
way,
know.
here's 7
Yeah.
Robert Ludlum videos.
People who bought this also bought that. And that is literally algorithms on steroids. And it works. And that's not just at the consumer level. What we're learning is that in the B2B space, it's just as applicable.
I don't think Amazon drug tests, though, like Major League Baseball. So I don't think we have
Not
to
yet.
worry about that. You're watching the Customer Edge. If you would like to follow the conversation online, it's #CustEdge, #CustEdge. My name's Butch Stearns. This is our segment called In the Field. Peter Ostro from Aberdeen is joining us. Robert Rothschild is here from SAP. We're talking about sales intelligence. We're really talking about sales effectiveness. By the way, the AP, Associated Press, was the account that got hacked into. That made the market swing. Let's talk about mobility. And let me start with you with this one, Robert. How does mobility of customers and sales teams impact sales effectiveness? You brought up your phone, and there's one example of it, but in your opinion, give me another example of how it affects.
Well, I mean, my phone is one example.
Right.
My tablet's another example. I think Peter mentioned this, mentioned it in one of his articles, but there's not just one device that you're going to use. Being able to have access to the right information at the right time so that you can be prepared to walk into an account and have a meaningful and valuable conversation with customers about things that are important to them is ultimately what's going to make you more successful in the field. If you do that, you're more effective. It's not about being efficient, it's about being effective and being better at what you do.
Every one of Dave's points at the end of his presentation was about customer this, customer that. Too often we sit in our cubes and we design what we think are great products and we don't think about how they're going to play. When the reps are using the smiles and the golf swings and building the relationships, but they're out there with their customers, We can't hobble them with the fact that they're actually not physically at the home office or at the office itself. The trend, though, is that we've been able to, check the basics in the CRM for a while, see where we are in the forecast for a while, but now the most contemporary technologies allow us to do a lot more in the context of not just seeing things when we're remote, but doing stuff, doing our job. There are certain environments, in pharmaceutical sales, there are actually some legal limits on, how many hours can be spent with physicians and in the healthcare facilities and what can be done off-site or on-site because there's security concerns. If we just take the idea of CRM, in the old days it was like, the last thing I want to do at the end of the day when I finally get back from my calls is enter all that data. But if the CRM is enriched with all the stuff we've been talking about, the insight into whether the customer owned the proposal, the CPQ, for instance, the electronic signature, the forecast, the social stream, and all of those things, it actually becomes a destination, and adoption will drive itself. So the idea to not just do stuff but see stuff allows us actually, with the better tools that we have at our disposal, and all of the tools. The phablet is the next thing I've heard. It's a phone and tablet, right? PH phablet. It allows us to actually create content and not just to see content and make sure that we're completely connected. Our research shows that anybody who thinks that we're going to downsize to just one device, that's wrong. We do need the multiple devices because you're not going to make a phone call on an iPad, but you're also not going to crunch a spreadsheet on that. But if you're in pharmaceutical sales and you've got 40 seconds walking through the hallway with a physician, you're not fumbling for anything if you've got your screen right there, and you also have connectivity so you can check on inventory. Boom. You've got a sale happening much more quickly and much more efficiently.
I think one point that you made, which I think is fantastic, is that in the old days, mobile technology and CRM systems in general were used as a management tool to keep track of what people were doing, right? And it was all about me as a salesperson putting information into there because somebody else wanted to see it. The man wants it. Yeah. Now we're at the point where you're getting value. As an actual salesperson, you're getting tremendous value out of the information that's in that device, and that helps me sell better. So, why not?
All right, Peter, let's finish up with this final question. You talked about social, you talked about mobile, you talked about analytics, you talked about a lot. But can you share examples of specific companies or industries that are leveraging all of those effectively?
Sure. From an industry standpoint, again, I think there's a couple of pharma firms that I've talked to who have used, for instance, one type of technology that I've seen that really leverages analytics. So imagine this scenario. Your sales rep comes to you and they say, okay, hey, I'm going to put this into the system, and they put the forecasted item into the CRM, and they put it in for $50,000 for June 1st. And the system then turns around and says, okay, we've got a $30,000 deal in for July 15th. And the rep says, no, I need to do 50K, and it's going to happen. I feel it. I think it. I got a good feeling about this one. And the system says, well, no, you actually haven't, because you haven't followed BANT criteria, you haven't answered and entered enough information, you haven't taken these particular training courses to show that you've got subject matter expertise on the product you're actually selling. That kind of pushback does a lot of things. It raises the bar for everybody. It provides kind of an automated version of the coaching that we talked about earlier. And frankly, it gives the managers the insight into where their own coaching and training capabilities need to be picked up a little bit. It sounds a little cold and harsh and maybe a little bit big brotherish, but we've actually seen it work. The same content should and can be available, obviously, in a mobile format, native to the machine, not just a web access. And from a social perspective, that feed also comes into the system. And I've seen applications where folks can drag and drop retweets of their own messages into the CRM, which, boom, allows you to lend instant credibility to the deal that you actually don't just feel, but know is going to close before the end of the month.
Great information, Peter. They can find you at Peter Ostrow, O-S-T-R-O-W, on Twitter.
Yep.
And at Aberdeen, of course, right?
You got it.
Thanks for being a part of the Customer Edge.
You're welcome.
All right, Peter Ostrow, part of our Customer Edge show here. Time now for the Cutting Edge. This is the segment where we give you advice, tips, hopefully, about how you can improve the customer experience with your customers. In today's Cutting Edge, How to Be Loved in Sales, a guide to sales effectiveness, we go to Tamara Shank, the VP of Sales Enablement at T-Systems, and these are 5 tips on sales enablement.
Hello everyone, my name is Tamara Schenk. I'm with T-Systems and I'm serving there as VP of Sales Enablement. Today I want to share with you my 5 on sales enablement. Ask 10 people how to define sales enablement and you will probably get 8 to 10 different answers. For some people it's a marketing issue because it's about content, for others it's a sales issue because it's about trainings, for others it's about technology, And for a few, it's maybe just another reason for a headache. So sales enablement is a strategic cross-functional discipline with a goal to equip all the client-facing people to create more value for customers and with their customers to achieve profitable growth and to increase effectiveness across the selling system. Sales enablement equips client-facing people with the ability to have these valuable conversations with their customers at each level and at each stage of their customer's journey. And sales enablement also equips the sales managers with appropriate leadership skills and coaching techniques to increase their individual and the organizational performance and to drive change and transformation. Number 2, take a strategic go-to-customer approach. Work outside in to help your organization to create more value in the connection economy. The idea is simple, but has a lot of consequences. Sales might be a function, but selling is a system. Check how your organization defines the term go-to-market. Maybe it's a lot around product, solutions, regions, markets, customer needs, and so on. Your product developers need this broad perspective. They need to think about how to address generic customer challenges and problems and how to standardize them. But selling is different. So go-to-customer means to translate and to map the generic value of your portfolio to the customer's specific problems and challenges. So use different patterns to solve a problem and to address a challenge. Create a path for them to show them how to get from the current state to the desired future state and how to achieve the desired outcomes. Then it's hopefully more about the proof of your value contribution than about a discussion on the price only. So that's the difference between go-to-market and go-to-customer, and start to build a selling system around these new 4 Ps. Start with your biggest pain point. Take your lessons learned, analyze what you don't know, and create a big picture in parallel. People often ask, how do I start the right way? I really think there is no right way and no wrong way. There is only a unique and individual way for your organization. So in my opinion, it's helpful to start with the biggest pain point because it will be urgent, you will get budget, and you will get senior executive sponsorship. Solve this first single issue with quick wins and measurable results. To leverage an organization's full potential, the sales managers have to be equipped first. Sales enablement was a long time very much focused on technology and on frontline salespeople. Sales managers were not a focus of sales enablement so far. We need to change that. Because sales execution, this is where the rubber meets the road. You should focus on an integrated sales coaching approach, which is the most sustainable and most effective way to increase sales performance. Your sales managers need coaching maps that are tailored to the customer's journey, to the sales milestones. So enabling the sales managers is just the other part of your go-to-customer framework. Practice what you preach. Communicate and sell internally using your go-to-customer approach. What we discussed so far won't have a measurable impact in the next quarter. Approaches like this will take several quarters to be implemented successfully. So it's important that you have a big picture, a vision, with a clearly defined step-by-step approach how to get there. Define the milestones in terms of activities and measurable results to help yourself to communicate and to sell your story. My name is Tamara Schenk. I'm with T-Systems, and these were my 5 on sales enablement.
This is the Customer Edge. I'm Butch Stearns along with Robert Rothschild of SAP. It is brought to you by SAP. The Customer Edge, in fact, is more of a community. This show, this webisode, is part of the community, and we bring it to you on a frequent basis. So time for Robert Rothschild and I to talk about some takeaways from today's show. We had a jam-packed show. We started with you and I with some headlines, and we focused on time to soup up your sales team. We also focused on how to best measure your sales manager's success. And then we focused on the art of debriefing. We then had David Brock, who talked with Tyler Pyburn of the Pulse here about sales effectiveness and enablement and collaboration. We then had Peter Ostro in here from Aberdeen. And now we just had Tamara Schenk with her 5 tips on sales enablement. So when we talk about takeaways, let's give 3 main takeaways. Let's talk about the complexity of sales. I think that got hammered over and over again on this program, that it is different now today, that it is more complex, but there's some comforting thoughts for people that are in sales, or if you're in marketing and want to be part of the sales process with that complexity. You're armed better more than ever, aren't you now?
You are. You've got the technology, you've got the analytics, you've got mobile tools, you've got everything that you need to back you up so that you can be better prepared to have those meaningful and valuable conversations with customers. You know more about what's going on with your accounts than they probably do about you.
That leads us, I think, to our second takeaway, and I'll call it all-encompassing. You just mentioned it. While it may be much more complex, the sales cycle now, you need much more, as you said, than the golf swing, the bottle of scotch, or the martini and the smile. Social, mobile, and analytics. The best companies are practicing all 3 of those. How are they doing it?
Well, I mean, they put them all together in a way that helps them outperform the competition. You have mobile devices that have sales analytic capabilities that help you better understand who your customers are and how to target the right ones at the right time with the right customer offer message, just like Dave mentioned. And you put all that together, and it's a winning combination.
And the final point is, you were telling me in the break, you were saying this, and I agree with you, there was a common theme throughout this show. When we talk about how to be loved in sales, there's one common statement that I think overrides everything, isn't there?
There is. I think it really comes down to keep the customer at the center of everything that you do. Focus on helping them solve problems, and you can't help but be more effective in sales.
Awesome. Robert, nice job.
Thank you.
Enjoyed talking with you. Educational, informational, and fun. Yeah.
Great.
It was good. Robert Rothschild of SAP. Thank you for being a part of the Customer Edge. And a quick reminder to you, watch your inbox. If you had registered to watch this show, you'll be getting an invite to become a member of the new Customer Edge community. And as a member, you'll get access to content from this show and all kinds of content and all kinds of access to thought leaders and what they're thinking and what they're reading and what they're recommending. That's the Customer Edge community. So watch your inbox. You'll be getting an invite to be part and a member of the Customer Edge community. For Robert Rothschild, for everybody that works so hard on this show, for SAP, I'm Butch Stearns. Thanks for being a part of the Customer Edge.